Our topic for this week is, again, the distributive property with expressions, but you'll notice that what's different is right here, we are going to be factoring this week to simplify expressions. So we're actually going to be doing the exact reverse of what we did with expressions last week. Last week we had parentheses and we distributed things and made groups to get rid of those parentheses. This week we're going to do the opposite. We're going to take expressions and create them into ones that have parentheses. So we have 3 examples here, just like last week. Slides 3, 4, and 5 are the examples that I'm going to do in this video to use to help you. So our first expression on slide 3 is 4x plus 8. So to show that with our tiles, I need green rectangles because this says 4x. That's a positive 4. I know some of you last week were getting a little bit confused with which color. So the reason I'm using the green is because that's a positive 4. Then we have plus 8. So if I want to show plus 8, that's positive 8. So I need 8 of the yellows. Now to make this a little bit faster, I'm going to drag 4 yellows. And then since I need twice as many as that, I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste it. I selected them all, copied and pasted. Now if you're not great with copying and pasting, that's okay. You could obviously just keep clicking and dragging more yellow squares. So what we have here is our entire section of tiles for 4x plus 8, and our goal is going to be to split that into groups. So I want to take these tiles and split them into equal groups. That's what's really important. I need equal groups. So I can't say like, okay, those 3 are going to stay here and this one comes here and there we go. I have 2 groups, these ones and these ones. We can't do that. We need to have two or more. Sometimes we're going to have more than 2 groups. We want equal groups. So I could take 2 of these. You'll notice that my rectangles are now in equal groups. And then I could do the same with my yellow squares. And now I have 2 equal groups. But when we do this, we want as many groups as possible. So what that means is looking at my groups now, is there a way that I could split these again to make even more groups? And there is, because I could take a green away from here and 2 of these yellows. See how I took that and split it into 2 groups again? And then I'll do the same down here. I'll split it into 2 groups again. So now, there we go. So now you can see I have actually 4 groups that are all equal. It might help if you use the circle tool up here where it says shape. Go to shapes, click circle, and then I can click and drag and show this is a group. Now you'll notice it made it gray. The way to change that is to click this bucket and click transparent. So here is a group. I'm going to copy and paste that circle. Here's another group, and another group. So now I've taken those tiles and I put them into 4 equal groups. When I go to write my answer, the way this is going to look is my number that I'm going to start in front of the parentheses is going to be how many groups I have. So in this case, I ended up splitting it into 4 groups. And then inside the parentheses, we're going to put what's in each group. So you can almost think of these circles as representing what's inside the parentheses. So I have 4 groups, and in each group, I have an X and I have a plus 2. And then I'm going to close my parenthesis. So this would be our final answer after we factored out that 4. That's what that's called, factoring out the 4. And you'll notice that the 4, if we look back to what we originally had, 4 is the biggest number that goes into 4 and goes into 8. So the numbers themselves here, we can look at it that way. 4 is the largest number that went into 4 and 8. All right, let's look at another example. This one we have 3x plus 3. So to start, I need 3 green rectangles. And again, it's green because that is a positive 3 right here. And then our second part of it says plus 3, so positive 3 yellow squares. Okay, and again, our goal is to figure out what is the most groups that I can split this into. I'm going to split this into the maximum number of groups, and those groups have to be equal. So if I go ahead and split apart our green rectangles into separate groups, I can also give each one of those groups a yellow square. So I took all these tiles and I split them into 3 equal groups. And again, I can circle those. Okay, so there's a group, there's a group, and there's a group. So I took my 3x plus 3, I split them into 3 equal size groups. So my answer, I'm going to put my 3 because I have 3 groups. And in parentheses, each group has an x and each group has a plus 1. Close the parentheses. So this now shows I took 3x plus 3, I split it in 3 groups, and each group is an x plus 1. The way you could actually check these also would be to use what we learned last week and take this and see if you distribute that 3 back into the parentheses, do you end up with what we started with? Okay, one last example here, and this one is going to make sure you know what to do if the expression looks a little bit different. You'll notice this one has a subtraction sign as well as having 2 variables. So to model this, we're going to start with 3x. That's 3 green rectangles. And then we have a minus 6y. Hopefully you all remember way back when we were at school last, we had used circles to represent our y's, just so that way we had some sort of a shape. But since this says minus 6y, I need 6 red circles because it's minus 6y. All of our reds represent negative things. All right, so there we go, 3x minus 6y. And again, I want equal groups. So if we want to think about how can I take these and split them, I could split the reds into 2 groups. So I could say, okay, here's 3 reds, those are equal. But the problem you're going to have is, can I split these green ones? And you'll see I can't. I moved this one down here, but I do not have equal groups. Okay, so again, I took the green ones and I can't split them like this because my groups right now are not equal. So we have to come up with a different way to split our red circles. So let me move these back up. The other way I could split 6 into groups is instead of putting 3 in each, I could put 2 in each. So if I take 2 of these red circles, slide them over here, and 2 of these and slide them over here, I could split them that way. And then that'll work better because then each of these groups can get a green rectangle. There we go. So now I do have equal groups. And I can show that with my circles. Here's a group. And here's a group. And then here is our last group. Okay, so then when we type our answer, how many groups do I have? We ended up with 3 circles, so that's 3 groups. Then our parentheses, and in our parentheses, we put what is in each group. And each group in this case has a green rectangle, which represents an X. And each group also has 2 red circles. And remember, over here, our red circles are minus y's. So I have minus 2y in each of those groups. So our final expression is 3 parentheses, x minus 2y, close the parentheses. So just to recap, the number in front of the parentheses says how many groups we have. What's inside the parentheses tells us what's in each group. One last thing here to help you is this idea of greatest common factor. So I mentioned on the first slide we did that we wanted the most amount of groups possible. And the GCF, or greatest common factor, will help you figure out the most amount of groups. It means what is the largest number that goes into both of the things. So when you look at your practice, the first numbers here are 12 plus 8x. So when you make your tiles, you're going to have 12 of something and 8 of something. So what you want to think about to use GCF to help you is what is the largest factor that 12 and 8 both share. Again, it's just one way to help you of just kind of making it a little bit quicker to find out what's the most amount of groups you can make. So just like last week, there are some slides that follow this that have practice work for you. Thank you to Mrs. Spence for her awesome memes that she always puts into our slides. Please let your teachers know if you need help, and we will also be providing feedback via the slides, just like we did last week. Please expect that if you have corrections to make, we are going to leave comments on the slides and send them back to you. So please make those corrections and then turn them back in again.